Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, this is what surfers live for. Killer waves hitting the San Diego coast, the powerful swell prompting beach warnings for novice swimmers.
And I'm Peggy Pico. How Imperial Beach and other areas in the county will prepare for climate change after being awarded thousands of dollars in grant money. Then, the killing of African lion Cecil by an American hunter causes outrage and concern for other wild animals. I'll have an update on animal conservation efforts here and around the world.
The audience was stunned, confused, disgusted, and then eventually they seemed to be laughing.
A quirky spacecraft falling apart, plus an unexpected journey for Hobbits, the theater festival in San Diego that keeps fans guessing until the final curtain. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. New clues for a mystery at sea. Debris found in the Indian Ocean today may belong to a missing Malaysia airline plane lost last year. Found nearly 4,000 miles away on the French island of Reunion near Madagascar, investigators say they have a, quote, high degree of confidence. A photo of aircraft debris is unique to the Boeing 777, the same type of plane that disappeared without a trace. 239 people were on board traveling from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. San Diego Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman says her department has made significant progress closing gaps in supervision and accountability for police officers. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser says the department plans to improve diversity and stop bad officer behavior.
The San Diego Police Department is more than halfway done with a list of recommendations made by the U.S. Department of Justice after a spate of San Diego police misconduct. In May, Zimmerman said the department checked 15 recommendations off its list and now is finished with 6 more. City Councilman Todd Gloria asked how elected officials will monitor the police department's progress.
How do we measure whether or not you're hitting your marks? How can we tell if enough of your officers have been trained, if that's being actually retained? Can you help us out on what we should be looking for to make sure we're holding you accountable to actually implementing these things appropriately?
I think, like we said that the last update that we were developing the program of what the training would look like. We've come back now just, less than 3 months and said, this is what the training looks like. We've just, gave you a presentation on it, and it starts Monday.
Zimmerman says the department is also improving diversity. 60% of its next academy class will be minorities or women. It's also promoting 10 new sergeants to improve supervision and is doing a community satisfaction survey. She says the remaining 19 recommendations will be finished, quote, very shortly. Claire Trageser, KPBS News.
Grounding drones in the fire zone, San Bernardino County is offering $75,000 in rewards for any information tackling, or rather tracking down, drone operators who interrupted 3 major wildfires. Aircraft battling the lake fire were temporarily grounded last month after a drone was spotted in restricted airspace. It happened 2 more times. County supervisors hope the rewards, $25,000 for each wildfire, will generate tips investigators need to find the drone operators. Only strong swimmers in the water. Big waves expected to hit San Diego beaches. Strong rip currents may catch others off guard. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler shows us how lifeguards are keeping up with the changing water conditions.
For some, big surf brings big fun. For others, big waves can turn a trip to the beach into a nightmare. San Diego lifeguard Lieutenant John Sanmayer says lifeguards are on alert for swimmers in trouble.
And when those big set waves do come in, that's when you're going to see stronger rip currents as well.
Sanmayer says he expects to see sets as high as 5 or 6 feet.
That's a lot of pounding if you get hit on the head by a wave like that.
But rip currents are even more dangerous.
Where the water, after it comes back in, it looks to get back out through those troughs in the ocean floor. That's where you're going to feel the effects of a rip current.
Sanmayer says parents should always pay attention to their children. but they aren't the ones who typically end up in trouble.
But it's the people that have moderate amount of experience that'll push the limits a little more that probably form most of our rescues.
On days with rip current warnings, San Mayor says San Diego lifeguards can rescue as many as 50 to 60 people. The best thing to do if you find yourself caught in a rip current, swim parallel to the shore until you're out of it. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
Well, we may see some rain and possible thunderstorms tomorrow in San Diego. Overcast along the coast with temps in the 70s over the next few days. Warmer and humid in the 80s for the inland valleys. More stormy weather if you're headed towards the mountains, with temperatures there in the low 80s. Likewise for the desert with triple-digit temperatures. A goal scored for water conservation. California's big cities saved a lot of water in June, meeting Governor Brown's order to cut back because of the drought. Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Jose made the list, along with San Diego. Water use here plunged 24% for the first month of the mandate. Some communities opposed making the cuts. The Water Board says those who don't meet the targets will face fines. Summer storms leaving a mess behind along the coast. Last year, a king tide flooded streets in Imperial Beach. The recent wet weather is prompting more groups to think about climate change. Peggy Pico explains how.
From the drought to dwindling water resources, coastal flooding, and wildfires, those are just a few of the issues addressed by local community groups who were awarded the Building Regional Resilience Grant by the San Diego Foundation. Joining me with how the money will be put into action are my guest, Imperial Beach Mayor Serge Dedina, co-founder of the nonprofit environmental group Wild Coast, and Nicola Hedge, Environmental Initiatives Director at San Diego Foundation. And Mayor Dedina, what are the key environmental or climate concerns in Imperial Beach?
Well, you know, Imperial Beach is surrounded. First of all, we're an awesome, beautiful city surrounded by, on three sides by water. So we have a lot to deal with when it comes to sea level rise and coastal flooding. And right now, what we're really focused on is, with this generous grant from the San Diego Foundation and from the California Coastal Conservancy, is to really work with scientists, business owners, and our residents to really identify what are the things that we need to do to really to deal with coastal flooding, you know, public infrastructure, et cetera.
Yeah, you know, you have lived in the area for a long time, I think since you were 7 years old, and we just saw a picture of Imperial Beach that was flooded. So give us an idea from your experience of what some of the issues are as far as specifically for Imperial Beach.
Well, you know, the National Weather Service is calling for a super El Nino coming up. And I remember as a kid coming the day after the Imperial Beach pier was destroyed by 15 to 20 foot surf. And we haven't had those El Nino storms with 15 to 25 foot surf and big storm surges in a long time. So that's something that we're concerned with. And what I saw over the last 2 years just with king tides is coastal flooding, where the ocean just rises up a little bit and then starts pouring into the street nonstop for a couple of hours. So, and back into our estuary. So that's something we're very concerned about, and we're starting to plan for right now.
And that's my next question. The city, your city was awarded $70,000 through this grant, the San Diego Foundation. How's the money going to be used? Well,
really, we've actually hired one of the best coastal geomorphologists in the country, Dr. Dave Ravel, who got his PhD at UC Santa Cruz, and worked with Gary Griggs, who's another probably the world's leading expert on this issue, and really to help us to develop that strategy and figure out, for example, what are we going to do with our public works yard, which is right on South San Diego Bay? What are we going to do with our elementary schools that are right on the bay? And our pump stations, things like that. Really simple things that are going to require some planning and foresight and some investment on the part of state authorities.
So working on that. So Nicola, highlight a couple of the other organizations and what they're being funded to do for this climate change sort of grant focus.
Absolutely. Well, as many of your viewers may know, climate change is going to affect the San Diego region in many different ways. And so we wanted to support projects. We've supported 6 projects throughout the county with some $300,000 that are going to look at issues from coastal flooding to preparedness for wildfires to the drought and increasing constraints on our water supply. So one grant, for instance, to the Resource Conservation District, looking at fire safe councils, working with residents to ensure that they're fire prepared, or the California Center for Sustainable Energy, looking at engaging municipal employees from 7 different cities and providing them customized information and guidance about how they can be more efficient at their homes with water.
Let me ask you this, though. How did these projects that were chosen, obviously, for this money, how did they fit into the county's climate action report called San Diego 2050 is calling? How will we answer?
That's a great question. We actually, the San Diego Foundation, helped produce that report with a consortium of groups, climate education partners, and it highlighted some of these big impacts to our region. These grants are intended to put that report into action, and so we looked for projects such as the one in Imperial Beach, where the city was going to work with community, with scientists, and with others to take that science and data and put that into action and start preparing today.
And Mayor Dedina, what do you see as the biggest risk as far as if we don't prepare in our whole region, not just Imperial Beach, for climate change?
Well, then we're going to have this coastal flooding, and we're not going to be able to deal with all this public infrastructure and even private residences that will be literally underwater. So we really need to start planning for it now. We need to learn how to work better, better. And that's one of the things we're doing at the City of Imperial Beach, is letting agencies know that we've got El Nino coming, and especially like in the Tijuana River Valley, we need to start preparing for it right now. That's something that we have to do. We have to be a better team. We've got to be a lot smarter about thinking about the future, more importantly, planning for today and that coastal flooding that we're going to see happen.
All right, Imperial Beach Mayor Serge Dedina and Nicola Hedge, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From climate change to tackling the problem of sexual assaults at college campuses, they need to start with the first day of school. That message from UC President Janet Napolitano testifying today before a Senate committee. She said more than 400,000 faculty members as well as students will get training about preventing and reporting sex crimes starting next month. Senators are working on a bill to help protect campus communities from attacks. Immigration detention stirred national attention this month after a man with multiple deportations was arrested in the death of a San Francisco woman. Our media partner iNewsSource took an in-depth look at the detention system and immigration court. Reporter Roxana Popescu shows us what they found.
My name is Victor Hugo Miguel Rodriguez Tello. I'm born in Guatemala.
Victor Hugo Rodriguez illegally immigrated to San Diego in 2004. A decade later, he had his first run-in with immigration enforcement. Rodriguez said about 40 people arrived at his house that night, including local and federal law enforcement.
Entraron y nos pusieron a todos de rodillas que estábamos que según.
It was a federal sting operation aimed at catching people harboring immigrants who are in the country illegally. Authorities arrested Rodriguez and 5 other people inside the house, including his 8-month pregnant U.S. citizen wife. She was released a few hours later. Rodriguez went into the custody of the Department of Homeland Security. A few days later, he was transferred from a detention facility in Chula Vista to one in Calexico, where he stayed for about 2.5 months. While waiting for his bond hearing, he missed the birth of his second daughter and lost his job.
Right. You don't just stay detained for months without a hearing. I mean, that's what they do where? Where would they do that? Guantanamo?
We reached out to the Department of Justice, who issued this statement. The Immigration Court schedules bond redetermination hearings for the earliest possible date. The detained caseload remains a top priority for the agency. According to data from Syracuse University, the backlog of cases waiting for results in immigration court has grown every year since 2007. In 2007, there were around 175,000 cases. Now, there are more than 450,000. Dana Marks is president of the National Association of Immigration Judges. She says that investing in more judges would speed things up and cost less in the long run.
We believe that it's a cost saving both right up front, that the people are detained for shorter periods of time before they have their first hearing, but also that it would eventually cause some reduction in the costs associated both with detaining someone during the appeal as well as the appellate courts needing to be funded.
Nationally, the cost of custody operations is budgeted at $2.4 billion for the fiscal year 2016. Rodriguez's detention alone cost taxpayers an estimated $12,000. Rodriguez was eventually released on bond. He is back with his family now, waiting for his green card and a work permit.
They have several steps that they need to complete before the process will be done, but I'm very positive regarding their case.
The government has given him permission to stay in the U.S. on humanitarian grounds while his case progresses. Rodriguez says he's relieved his detention is behind him.
I'm stay here with my family, with my wife and my daughter. I'm so happy.
But sometimes at night, as he falls asleep, his mind wanders back to his cell in Calexico. His next hearing will be in March 2017. For KPBS and iNewsSource, I'm Roxana Popescu.
We have more about the detention system online at iNewsSource.org. The story was produced in conjunction with our Front Terrace desk and made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Keeping tabs on a rare rhino, one of the last northern white rhinos on the planet lives at the San Diego Zoo. Its genome cells have been saved by workers at the Frozen Zoo.
This is very important to ensure the safeguard of these species, and there's actually multiple frozen zoos around the planet to help protect that. And within that frozen zoo, we have 12 different individual northern white rhinos represented, and so that's kind of the foundation of what we're hoping to save that species on.
The Frozen Zoo also preserves samples from other endangered species from around the world. Peggy Pico has more on endangered animals and conservation efforts.
Headlines from around the world about American dentist Walter Palmer, accused of luring Cecil the African lion out of a national park in Zimbabwe and killing him, unleashed anger and renewed discussion of animal conservation. African lions face the threat of extinction in the next 35 years, warned the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service last year. Here with an update on animal endangerment, extinction, and conservation efforts is my guest, David Archibald, Emeritus Professor of Biology at San Diego State University. And David, give us an estimate, if you will, of how many species are being threatened to extinction.
The figures that I hear are somewhere between 30 and 50% of all plants and animals may become extinct in the next 20 to 30 years.
So kids that are born today by their 30 or 35th birthday.
It's in a generation we're going to see a lot of things disappear that we take for granted now.
Now, we're talking about this mass extinction on the planet in the next 3 decades or so. How many extinctions have there been on this planet?
The ones we're sure about, there have been 5 in the last 500 million years, and this one, called the 6th extinction, is almost certainly mostly caused by human activity, and the underlying cause is overpopulation, which is sort of the grandfather of all the issues that are going on.
Overpopulation, just is it a resource issue? Is it a foresting issue? What seems to be the problem?
All of those. It has to do with loss of habitat, acidification in the oceans, increase of sea level, climate change itself, and poaching we see of elephants and rhinos, overfishing in the oceans, and a variety of other things that are all related in the end to having too many people on the planet.
The hunter accused of killing Cecil the lion is one of many around the world who pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to hunt game, big game or animals, including one last year, the endangered black rhino, which was killed by a hunter. With international laws against hunting endangered species and even threatened species, how is this still happening?
Well, I'm not an expert on the laws in these countries, but I think a lot of it has to do with corruption at higher levels that allow people to come and hunt the animals. Even if you hunt them, then can you bring them into the United States, for example? And hopefully, if that's possible now, that will change.
You were speaking a little earlier, you and I were talking about this idea that social media may help curb this. Tell us what you're thinking on that.
Well, in case of rhino horns, the 2 uses that people may be familiar with, in Yemen, there used to be knife handles made from rhino horn as rite of passage for young men. My information is that that is stopped through kinds of laws and social pressure. In Asia, the horn is used in medicine, and one of the ways possibly is for younger generations using social media to say, this is something we're not going to do anymore. We're going to stop using this in our medicines.
And certainly the social media blowback from Cecil the lion, what happened there, has certainly brought this into people's consciousness.
Yes, it has. And the thing is, the death of one animal doesn't not necessarily bode extinction, but what it does, it tells us that we're being not very careful how we're taking care of the animals in these reserves and in parks and around the world, in the wild, basically.
Yeah, sure. My understanding is the lion was on a national park and was lured off of it.
This is my understanding as well.
So somebody had the wherewithal to know they had to lure it off
and that's
of
the part that appears to be illegal.
Right. What is the environmental impact and impact on other species when one particular, let's say the rhino, one particular species goes extinct?
Well, it can be devastating depending on if it's a key species in the environment. In the case of elephants, I can speak more than rhinos here. In some areas, they help clear out the forests and keep the savannas open for other animals and produce more food for the other animals in the area. So in that case, if you lose those animals in an area, the forests start to grow back, and other animals are affected very greatly.
Down the food chain.
Down the food chain and across the food chain, yes.
For people who are watching that want to help with endangered species, what's the best way for, let's say, your average person here in San Diego to help?
Well, first of all, if you want to read about something, there's a book called The Sixth Extinction that won a Pulitzer by Elizabeth Colbert, I believe her name is, and it's geared for people who want to learn more about human causes of this. Support local groups like the San Diego Zoological Society, Nature Conservancy, and other groups locally that help educate people in terms of conservation.
All right, Professor Emeritus David Archibald, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
San Diego Zoo broke ground today on its largest exhibit ever. Africa Rocks will transform 8 acres of the nearly 100-year-old park into a new habitat for African plants and animals. A special groundbreaking this morning included help from a porcupine. After a year-long fundraising effort collected more than $61 million. Philanthropists Conrad Previs and Ernest Rady were among the major donors. The exhibit will be located on the northern side of the zoo, formerly known as Cat and Dog Canyon.
As you walk through Africa Rocks, you'll experience a lot of different ecosystems, not just one, because Africa is filled with a wide variety of spaces, from deserts, mountains, savannas, everything in between, tropical islands even. And the space we're standing in now will eventually be one of the most beautiful African penguin exhibits you've ever seen.
San Diego Zoo pumps more than $1 billion a year into the local economy. It was voted world's best zoo by TripAdvisor this year. The Africa Rocks exhibit should be open to the public in 18 months.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, we talk with the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, General Philip Breedlove. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Break out the champagne. San Salvador back on San Diego Bay today. She launched from a Chula Vista shipyard less than an hour ago. It's a fully functioning replica of the first ship to sail into San Diego in 1542. The ship will make its public debut on Labor Day weekend during the Festival of Sail. Kids will use it as a floating classroom, setting off for educational voyages up and down the California coast. San Diego Fringe has been running for almost a full week now. KPBS arts reporter Beth Agamando says it's been delivering on its promise of eyeball-busting entertainment.
Over the past 6 days, hobbits and dwarves invaded the Lyceum. Don Quixote came to life at the Raw Space. Men and women entered separate parallel dimensions at the Spreckles Incubator. And a stage mom called on Satan to help her beat out the competition as best parental coordinator. Plus, feathers flew at multiple burlesque shows, and audiences were put in awe of amazing demonstrations of physical prowess. San Diego International Fringe is not only living up to its advertising, but delivering surprises as well.
Hello, audience.
At Kate McGrew's Hooker PI, she candidly revealed her role as a sex worker seeking laws for body autonomy, and then dazzled the audience with pole dancing. Over at 10th Avenue, Scott Eric Burgess was taking things less seriously in regards to his play.
So I wrote a play called Scenes from Mars 1, now with 68% less gravity, a one-act play with 13 intermissions. It's about 2 amateur astronauts who go on a one-way mission to Mars. We decided the best way to do a play in the Fringe Festival was to ruthlessly mock the Fringe Festival. I think that's probably in the spirit of Fringe. I don't know. We'll find out, right?
No, there's been a lot of buzz about this play, though. Was it a negative?
The audience was stunned, confused, disgusted, and then eventually they seemed to be laughing, so that was kind of what we were going for. Rather than break the 4th wall of theater, this play is sort of designed to start at the 6th wall of theater. and then go through the pile of rubble that's the fifth wall and then try to repair the fourth wall before it's all over.
Eric Burgess's play was entertaining before it even began, as he lined the street in front of 10th Avenue Theater with his costumes, props, and sets.
It's mainly everything we could find at IKEA, including a beach umbrella. It's really just stuff that is returnable, so I've kept the receipts to everything. Don't tell IKEA that. And it takes the full 15 minutes to load all our junk into the theater. We also found a dryer drum from an industrial washer dryer in a Best Buy trash can. And so that's the airlock for our spaceship. Inside the theater, we also have a porta potty, which is the physical spacecraft during our spacewalk scene.
Scenes from Mars is Eric Burgess's first play, and he was surprised how easy it was to get into the Fringe Festival.
All you have to do, though, admittedly, is fill out an online form and say that you want to do a play. I have no idea the criteria they use, so I can't imagine it's very rigorous if they accepted our play. It's really shocking to me that we got in.
But then that's what Fringe is all about, bringing a diverse range of people, styles, stories, and talent together for some eyeball-busting entertainment. And one last word of advice from Eric Burgess.
I mean, safety goggles are always recommended for anything you do outdoors or indoors.
Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
San Diego International Fringe continues through Sunday at 18 different venues. Go to Beth's Cinema Junkie blog at kpbs.org for a list of recommendations. Of course, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.